Hi, this is Hank reporting from Kyiv, and this is my update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's see what happened around Ukraine in the last 24 hours. Current threat in Donbass. North Korean soldiers against Ukraine. North Korean hackers against Russia. Political prostitution of the highest level. Big catch of traitors. Good news. World Firefighter champions. Good news. New transformer received. Night attack stats. Russian losses. Let's start with the situation at the front. Perhaps the most difficult position today is in the city of Selydovo in Donbass. The Deep State Service shows approximately the following arrangement on the map. As you can see, the Russians are pushing through our defenses from the eastern side, and there is a heavy fighting there right now. Here is what Officer Stanislav Munyatov writes. Current as of 20 hours ago. Russians are entering Selydovo in whole platoons. Our FPV crews make 100 flights per day only against the enemy infantry, and this is still not enough, and they cannot cope with such a flow. The enemy is fruitfully infiltrating and dispersing soldiers into houses and basements. Captured Russians report that fresh reserves have arrived, and the pressure will continue in the near future. This is certainly bad news and perhaps even critical if we take this separate small area. Now let's zoom out a bit. This is what Selydovo looks like from afar. The territory that Russians have occupied since 2022 is marked in red, and what they occupied 10 years ago at the beginning of this war is marked in purple. I drew a line from Selydovo to Donetsk, a key city in Donbass, and as you can see, the distance is about 40 kilometers, roughly speaking an artillery shot away. This is how far the Russians have advanced here in 32 months of assault. Yes, of course, this is a real help there in a small town, but if you look from afar, you can hardly call it a super achievement. This entire red territory is literally covered in the blood of our defenders and occupiers. I can't imagine what kind of effort it takes to hold this defense. In general, we can say that all the territory they have captured since the beginning of the full-scale invasion is ruins, just ruins. At the end of the year, we will receive some statistics on how much land we have lost and how much we have returned. A month ago, I already made a similar comparison, but time goes by and the situation changes every day in one direction or another. It's interesting to look at it. The head of the Ukrainian intelligence, General Budanov, commented on the participation of North Korea in our war. At the moment, we know that Kim sent 3 generals, 500 officers here, and plans to send about 2,600 more soldiers to the Kursk region in a week. Note how interesting it turns out. Putin is humiliating himself in front of the outcast dictator in order to get 3,000 soldiers to protect his territory, which he himself could not recapture in 2 months. I believe that this 3,000 is a part of that 10,000 mentions in media earlier. Yes, they lie in the news every day that they surrounded and destroyed thousands of Ukrainians and NATO soldiers, but in fact, the most of the Kursk region is still under our control, and he has to import North Koreans to do at least something. A reasonable person would stop seizing someone else's land and start defending his own, but we're talking about reasonable people, right? Putin is now like a monkey who grabbed a banana and cannot push it through the cage, but also can't throw it away. This development will certainly go down in history. Our poor children will try to figure out what happened here. Norwegian F-16s bombed North Koreans in the Kursk region of Russia, which was controlled by Ukrainians and Russians who were against the Russian government. Good luck understanding the chain of events. Since Ukraine has never had a conflict with North Korea and there are thousands of miles between us, it's important to understand why they're coming here to fight against us. Putin gives Kim money so that North Korea can survive, because you know how poor they live. There is literally not enough food to survive. I'm not talking about some standard of living. Also, the Russians give some military technology and nuclear technology that will help Kim develop his nuclear weapons and submarines. It's also sad that North Korea has sent Russia at least 8 million artillery shells of various calibers in a year. 8 million, just imagine. This is official intelligence data. How are the world leaders doing? Does no one care that crazy dictators share nuclear weapons during the active phase of the war? So that no one has any illusions about Kim having some kind of warm relationship with Russia, I'll tell you that in 2020, the first evidence appeared that North Korean hackers attacked Russian military and industrial facilities in the direction of industrial espionage. In the spring of 2020, hackers from the Kumsky group carried out phishing campaigns to obtain confidential data in the aerospace and defense industry of Russia, and also directly attacked the Rostech company, What is important is that this data is from Russian sources. In particular, their newspaper Kommersant wrote about this. And later, the Konni hacker group carried out several cyber attacks on Russian government institutions. The main goal then was to obtain valuable data for the development of their nuclear program, and now, as you can see, Kim has found another way to get it. I don't think you'll want to translate the article from Korean, but I'll leave a link to the source of information below the video if you're interested. For Kim, sending thousands of his soldiers to war to gain experience is a big deal. This has never happened before. As General Budanov says, there is a huge difference in the motivation of the enemy's soldiers. Most Russians are no longer motivated and are fighting just for money they have never seen in their lives. And the North Koreans are coming from a wild country behind the Iron Curtain. They are motivated by propaganda and ideology, and their families can be executed by Kim if something goes wrong. As a human being, I feel sorry for them. I don't want anyone to get in such a zugzwang from which it seems there is no way out. But Ukraine has a great chance for them. I will show you a short video with sound. This is an advertisement for Ukrainian prison. We shot a video clip voiced in Korean in which they are offered comfortable conditions of detention in captivity and shown what the cells look like, how they will be fed 3 times a day. How many of them lived in worse conditions at home in North Korea?
북한에서 새로 도착한 전쟁 포로를 수용하기 위해 가까운 장래의 전선의 여러 부문에서 포로가 된 최초의 북한 점령군이 이곳에 도착할 것입니다. 수용소의 전쟁 포로들은 별도의 수면 공간을 갖춘 크고 따뜻하고 밝은 방에 수용됩니다. 수용소의 전쟁 포로들은 하루 3끼의 식사를 받으며 식단에는 고기, 신선한 야채, 빵이 포함됩니다.
At the end of the video, there are all the contact details they can use to safely surrender to Ukraine. As you know, we strive to take as many prisoners as possible in order to have an exchange fund. There are thousands of our soldiers and civilians in Russia, and we really need to free them. Therefore, this option may be the best possible for the soldiers from North Korea. It feels it's the first time in the world history when someone is interested in saving North Korean lives. I'm very interested to see the continuation of this story in the future. The disgrace of world politics and head of the UN, Antonio Guterres, went to bow to Putin. Since I'm first photographer, for me every picture that I choose to illustrate these events is first and foremost body language and facial expressions. Just look at how slavishly he bows to the master. The UN, as a successor of the League of Nations, is moving along the same path. This organization is important. And we pay with blood for compliance with the rules of the UN statute, and we do everything possible to bring peace based on this set of rules. Literally, the Ukrainian peace formula is written according to these rules. In general, it seems to me that today we are the only country that actually fights for compliance with the UN rules, while the UN itself seems like doesn't really need it. But Russia spits on all these rules. Moreover, Russia is not even a legal member of the UN. They have simply occupied places there since 1991 because they declared themselves the successor of Soviet Union, somehow. But after leaving the Soviet Union, Ukraine went through the process of joining the UN as a separate country. The Czech Republic and Slovakia also went through this process after the collapse of Czechoslovakia. Russia simply said that we were now the new Soviet Union, and everyone pretended that it is okay. But the fact is that the world has changed. It is no longer divided into the US as the West and the USSR at the East. This structure must be disbanded. As for Guterres' trip to pay homage to a man in whose name there is an active warrant from an international criminal court, a man who kills children in Ukraine every day, a man in whose hands is the blood of hundreds of thousands of dead, the UN reported that this is standard practice for hosting meetings of organizations with a great number of important member states. Let me remind you that earlier he refused an invitation to participate in the Peace Summit in Switzerland, which was organized by Ukraine. Now, after his visit to Russia, President Zelensky declined his proposition to come to Kyiv. Draw your own conclusions. Ukrainian counterintelligence detained terrorists who were supposed to commit an explosion in a public place to create panic. It was supposed to happen here in Kyiv. They were detained in the southern direction while trying to set fire to military equipment, and information about the terrorist attack appeared during the check after the arrest. Now these two are facing life imprisonment. I'll say this. Before 2014, there were no terrorist attacks in Ukraine at all, and we heard about terrorists only from international news and Hollywood movies. We never had such problems before Russia began to seize our lands 10 years ago. Of course, you can say that I blame Russians for all the troubles, but honestly, before 2014, I lived in a complete confidence that the world was rather kind and good and all people are brothers, let's all live in peace. Yeah, I know. In total, over the past week, 5 people were detained in different regions who were supposed to set the fire to military vehicles for money from the Russian FSB. These are all unemployed young people who decided to get easy money from the enemy during the war. I probably won't tell you a secret that such people have always existed everywhere at all times, but it's no less disgusting to see these people in your country. The people in the photo managed to burn relay cabinets, which complicated our logistics and therefore literally affected our defense capability. All enemies of the state will receive life sentences and will now be supported for decades by our taxes. Okay, it's a little strange to show so many blurred people in one block, but for context I have to take these illustrations from the news. In addition to arsonists and failed bombers, the Security Service of Ukraine detained 19 people this week who administrated the fake Telegram channels with disinformation and revealed the locations of the military. This group of people faces up to 8 years in prison. Also, it's worse considering how harmful mass information can be. Maybe even more dangerous than setting fire to one car. I will finish this blog dedicated to traitors with such an interesting character. Metropolitan of the Transcarpathian Diocese of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate. This is the one that we are trying to ban in the country. Mark, a citizen of the Russian Federation, is building a house near Moscow in Sergiev Posad while remaining a representative of the church in Ukraine, reports the journalist Vitaly Glagola. This information is based on data from his sources in law enforcement agencies and leaked Russian databases. I will not delve into this deeply, just below is a screenshot of a Russian document that confirms what I said. As you understand, we have a very difficult situation with such traitors who need to be sought out like a needle in haystack during the active phase of war. Looking at the number of such arrests, I'm surprised how we really survived for such a long time, both fighting against a superior army outside and against traitors and saboteurs inside. I hope that Mark will be soon prosecuted according to the law. Today was a very depressing episode, only difficulties and traitors. Many traitors. I'm not a fan of swimming in warm water to smooth out stress, but I really want to see something good, some ray of light. Unfortunately, during war there are not so many really good news, they need to be collected bit by bit. And this is one of these things. Rescuers are heroes, people who literally go through fire and water to save lives. Alexander Baron from Ukraine and his partner Mackenzie Briggs from Florida set a record at the 2024 World Firefighter Championship in the States. In the photo, they are holding a sign as the current world record holders. Good job, I admire people like that. Good news number 2, we received the first transformer with the capacity of 750 kilowatts, which will be able to provide electricity to about 300,000 people, and we expect the delivery of 20 more of this. This equipment will replace what Russians destroyed with their missiles. The International World Bank paid for these transformers. Yeah, today we are happy to receive the transformer. Who would have thought? Before I would not even pay attention to this, but during the war, in the spring of 2022, I remember how happy I was that I was able to buy several large packs of frozen chicken. War changes your values very quickly, believe me. Last night, Russia launched 63 drones at us. These are the usual Iranian Shaheds and several new models, about which there is no information yet. I suppose they are being investigated. I suddenly thought that how strange it sounds. We are fighting against the North Koreans and shooting down Iranian drones and all this in Ukraine. In 2012, when I was offered to get an international press card of a journalist, I laughed and said that I live in Mariupol, where nothing will ever happen. I wish. It was before my trip to Crimea, exactly 2 years before the war began. So, we shot down and landed 42 drones. The remaining 19 are questionable. I have not found confirmation about them and have not found information about the destruction. This is all I have at the moment. I will supplement this news if details appear. Casualties of Russians in the war. In total, at the moment, we know that Putin's army has lost 685,910 people, including 1,630 in the past day. This is a huge number that continues to grow. We have already stopped being surprised and accepted the fact that it's quite normal for them to die for money. Of course, if they lived well and happy at home, then rubles would not be a motivation for them. As our intelligence says, they are okay to face possible death after they have paid $30,000 or $40,000 at once for signing a contract. More precisely, they are being promised to earn this because not everyone receives this money. In any case, for the average Russian, such a sum is a miracle. They have never seen such money in their lives, and the conditional $1,100 in equivalent for the death of a relative in the war is generally a gift from the fate for many Russians, and they normally perceive the fact that someone will die for this. Yeah, we have very different mentalities. I've never seen Ukrainians behave like this, but I know stories of parents giving a huge part of the payments from the state for the death of their son to buy drones for the army, because we have something to fight for our home. A day ago, I was photographing a charity football tournament, and then I had to take a day off and lie down at home. It's very difficult to run in cold with a huge camera for 8 hours without a break, but the result is good. There were 4 matches and I took a lot of good shots like this. We also raised money to support our army, and it seems enough to buy a pickup truck. Somehow, lending a shoulder to each other, we are still holding on. I say thank you to everyone who is helping us now. If you want to support this channel, all the links to PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee are below the video. Take care, and I hope to see you tomorrow.